And we're back. Here again with the Like the Future series. I have the privilege to be with the founder and leader of the Apex movement. Would you call it a movement, a community? What do you refer to this as?
Yeah, it's definitely a movement, but I call it the network.
The network.
You know, I feel like it's the network, you know. A network can be a movement too.
You're right. Ryan Stewman, you all
I feel like
know
movement's a little political. I'm not trying to get a target on my back, so we're just going to call it
you
a
don't
network.
Need to create the network, the community, the neighborhood,
yes,
right?
That's right.
So, Ryan, one of the things we've been doing is sharing with the young people some of the things that have happened in your experience. How did you get started in the entrepreneurial space? I mean, how old were you? What were you doing?
Well, to be an entrepreneur, first let's define what that means,
Okay.
right? That's in the literal sense, it means risk taker, right? And so an entrepreneur is actually a French word. It means risk taker, right? So in that sense, I guess I've been one all my life, right? But in the sense of in a business risk taker, which is more of the American context of an entrepreneur, the first time that I really got a shot to be an entrepreneur and own my own business was in late 2004. Mm-hmm. So by the time we're recording this, it's 2022, so that would make it 18 years ago. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so 18 years ago, but I was working a regular job. So I believe there's like 4 levels we ascend through in the business world. We have, and this isn't anything that I made up. This has been said over and over again, but there's you work for somebody, you work for yourself, and then you have people working for you, and then you own a business and the business works for you, right? Mm-hmm. So those are the 4 levels you're trying to go. So up until 2004, I was in level 1. I worked for somebody. I did sales, mm-hmm. right? But they told me when to show up. They told me when to go to work, what I had to do, and clock and punch a deal and all of that. But I was really good at that job. I worked really hard, and I didn't say, oh, this is just a job. This was my one and only shot to maybe have a job and have employment. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like today where you could get on the internet and figure stuff out. Like, if that job failed me, I had to drive around or call around and find a job. It wasn't no monster.com or anything.com back then, really, you know what I mean? And so I was just proud to have this job. And this is one, like, lesson number 1 that I learned before going into an entrepreneur is that hard work may seemingly go unnoticed, but before long, it gets noticed, right? I mean, hard work may seemingly go by, and you may think nobody's paying attention, but eventually they can't not pay attention, right? You're so good at what you do. It's like the first day you go to the gym and you start working out, nobody's paying attention to you. 4 or 5 years later, when you're in there out bench pressing, out squatting, out lifting, everybody, you look like Steve Kukla or something like that. Everybody in the gym's got, they look, where'd this guy come from? You're 5-6 years on the road, right?
They're working.
So that was me. And this customer came in and she said she wanted to give me a job. And I had a bunch of excuses why I didn't deserve this job, but this job was basically, it wasn't a job, it was an opportunity to work for myself. I didn't know that at the time because it was under the guise of a job. Right. But when I got there, it was $10.99 commission only. If you know what that means, that's not a job. Yeah, you're on your own. It's like, good luck, Junior. You know what I mean? And so that's what I did. And again, I was naive, but she made me believe in myself. And it wasn't like she should, like some sexy old lady or anything. She was just like, man, she was just good people, man, that made me believe myself. She's like, man, if you could do all this for a car wash, imagine what you could do for a bank. What's the difference? I learned this stuff. Why wouldn't I be able to learn that? And that was another lesson, like still to this day, I'm a lifelong learner. You know, I read a book every night. Every night I'm reading 10, 20 pages of a book, you know. But that was my first chance. You know, this lady, someone saw me work hard consistently and said, I know that he's only washing cars and I'm financing the future of families. Right. But if that guy will apply that work ethic to my bank, and I did. And and literally at 25 years old, within a year of my life, I went from making $10.50 an hour to putting $770,000 in my bank account.
Powerful, man. And that's a common thread because a lot of the people that I've been talking to have mentioned that, they did some menial work, but the work ethic is what got them noticed, right? So that's strong.
That's a big thing that's missing these days, I think. there's a park by my house, and it's trash cans there, but people are people, and they throw their mask up and stuff. And me and the kids, we go every couple of days, and we just clean up the park. I don't work for the city. I don't send them a bill. I don't do any of that. But like, I'm just teaching them at a young age. It's like, hey, we do what other people won't do,
right?
Because we live like other people can't live. You know what I mean? Like, you may see, oh, look at those guys, and we're, I got tattoos, and none of us look like we're rich kids. We're not out there in like suit and ties or something.
Right.
And so they're probably like, oh, they probably do work for the city. But the thing is, like, those people that may be looking at us picking up that trash think we work for the city. Ain't none of them living like we are.
You're right. Now, another thing that's a common thread in this community is I've talked to a lot of very successful entrepreneurs, and many of them started with rather dubious activities in terms of business. And for me, that's a commonality too, because coming from Chicago, seeing people selling drugs on the street is what inspired me to really want to do something with young people. So the thought is, I really want the young people to understand that wherever they are, because you've had experience before you got into the, I guess, the mortgage industry, where you were actually doing some business, but maybe nefarious product, right?
Well, yeah, a lot of people start off selling drugs in our ages, right? Like from like, let's say, currently in 2022, from 30 years old up, a lot of those people that are entrepreneurs started off selling drugs for a couple reasons. Number one, I'm a felon, so a lot of people can't give me a job, so I have to be an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Okay. And I already know how to market a product, bag it up, and distribute it, right? So it's like, I'll figure the rest of the stuff. I know how to count money. I know how to do deals, shake hands. And what's weird about selling drugs is you're like marketing, but you can't market. It's like, I need you to know who I am, but you can't tell nobody who I am. It's a weird deal. Then when you realize you go into business and you apply the same thing, first of all, nobody's shooting at you. Second of all, nobody's trying to rob you. And third of all, it's like they can all know who you are and tell their friends about you and come get a mortgage from you. And it's way big. It's like, there's no drug dealers living in my neighborhood. Actually, there's 2 pharmacists on my street, but you get the point, right?
I get the point, yeah.
There's it's just like, you don't ever go, I'm going to go to the rich neighborhood and get some drugs, right? So, but we have this Hollywood persona of, Scarface and $1 million. Like, those people really don't exist. But that was our opportunity. See, you come from Chicago. I come from here in Dallas. In the community that I came from, there was like maybe 20,000 people in the city when I was in 7th, 8th grade, right? And in Allen, Texas, and now it's a very nice city. Back then, it was like country trailer homes, $50,000 houses. It wasn't anything like it is today. Neither was Frisco or any of this stuff, right? West Plano didn't exist. But anyway, in our little neighborhood of $50,000 houses, there's probably 20 of us that went to the penitentiary that lived in our neighborhood that I went to school with. Drugs, murder, something like that. And it's just like, we were all just poor. We didn't have any leadership, And there, it wasn't like somebody was online on Instagram with an ad saying you can make money in real estate with no money down, or you can learn the e-com and start your own store, or you can be a social media influencer. Like, there wasn't that. It was like, you can sell cocaine, and if you don't get killed, you can pay your rent this month, right? Like, and I joke, it wasn't like a situation like some neighborhoods I lived in. Like, you really could get killed. There was a neighborhood I lived in East Dallas where it seemed like there were shots every other night, you know what I mean, on the streets, sometimes at the police. It was pretty wild. But in Allen, there was like one of those neighborhoods where it was like, they were always the bigger kids fighting you because I was always the small. You could never carry nothing on you because they would jump you and take your stuff. They didn't maybe take your shoes, but they definitely taken your wallet, your money, your weed, all that kind of stuff. If you had drugs on you, it was just a different time than it is now. You know what I mean? Now everybody's like all inclusive and shit like that. Back then, man, if you wasn't even in the same grade as them, you were in a different class of human, and they just treated you different. They bullied you or whatever. We didn't think of it as bullying. We like, that's how you got tough. Okay. It's like,
now,
man.
There's a profound idea that you touched on, and that is poverty breeds criminality. For sure. For real.
So, for lack of information. Because poverty comes from lack of information.
Right, exactly. And that's why I'm so honored that you have taken this time to invest in young entrepreneurs, give them an opportunity to access information. And I want to make reference to, this is not something you just started doing, because you've actually been educating a lot of young people like Zach Sasser, who's one of your top salespeople. He came in as an intern. So at what point did you decide to start reaching out to young people and giving them an opportunity, sharing information with them, and kind of educating them on the game?
Well, it's like I said, our opportunity was to sell drugs. And that's a losing opportunity these days. And the drugs we sold, weed's legal most places anyway.
Right about now, yeah.
So, these days, I guess it was 2019. And I met a young kid from California, and man, this guy was like 19 years old. He was his dad was a doctor. His mom was like a lawyer. He's from Orange County, and he was teaching all these kids how to do e-com stuff.
Really?
Right? Yeah. His name was Josh. And he was teaching all these kids how to do
I remember
e-com
Josh.
stuff. And I was like, man, like, there's something to helping young. These people are hungry, and like nobody was putting that shit on the plate for me, right? And the same thing. He's in Orange County, and he's teaching these guys, and these 19, 20-year-old kids are buying Lamborghinis and stuff, and it was almost like the dope game. We're buying like 24s on our cars and shit like that. It was like the same thing, but they're doing it legally,
Right.
And I said, man, I'm gonna get with this kid. And I'm gonna help these guys out. Hey, they should not be buying Lamborghinis in their 20s. Like that's a 35, 40-year-old man's game. You're wasting money in your 20s, you know? And it's just like, you don't need a Lamborghini to get laid in your 20s. I'm just telling you, ladies and gentlemen, so save your money until later, But the thing is, these guys were doing this really cool stuff, and I thought, man, you know what? If we start reaching people when they're like, remember the guy that was 13 years old that came from South Africa?
Yeah,
well, Ruan. Yes, right. Like how many more of those people? Because like that guy was in South Africa. He was like really limited on his options. You know what I'm saying? But he had a way to do some stuff on Instagram that he was making a ton of money. And it's like, I want to help people like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And these guys, like, they get misguided and they get a little bit because I can't always just be there for them,
Right.
especially those two guys. But man, that's really inspiring to me. So I was like, man, how can I create more Ruans and Joshes,
powerful,
but like
man.
help them to where they don't make some of the
stupid
mistakes those
mistakes.
guys did,
Right.
and the mistakes that I made too. You know what I mean?
Now, recently, you actually spoke to a college, right? And you didn't know it was Christian college, but went in there with that vocabulary. That's all it is.
You're gonna learn today.
What they gonna learn today? When I talked to
Praise Jesus.
the gentleman that orchestrated it, one of the things that he mentioned is that how you bring it so real, and that's the reason why he's in the position he's in, is because he don't sugarcoat. He a for real entrepreneur. He tell them like it is, right? So, what was your experience with doing? I think it was a Zoom session with the college.
Yeah, well, I treat it like anything else. The world, if the world around you is trying to make light of situations and trying to coddle you and make you weaker, I just don't believe in that, And if people are lying to you or overpromising type of stuff, man, I just want to be straight with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, everybody that I come into contact with, I always want them to be like, yo, I may not like what the guy had to say, but he was straight with me, and I knew who he was 100% of the time because all I had to do was ask him, and he would tell me.
Right. For real.
And it doesn't make me a mean person or a bad guy. I want to help everybody, you know what I mean? But I also want to tell you the truth. You come with me with the great idea, and it's not such a great idea. I want to tell you that because I don't want you to waste your time either.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And but back to the guys, man. Really speaking to colleges. It's one of those things that, it's a foot in the door. I would do it as many times as they would let me. I charged $50,000 to speak, and I did that for free. I charged $10,000 for Zooms, and I did that one for free because, man, like I said, there might have been a kid sitting in that class that was thinking, man, if I don't, man, places ain't getting money right now. I might have to sell some ecstasy to be able to pay my student loans next month to be able to stay in college or whatever.
Right.
And then I give them this idea,
Really? That's powerful.
The other day, we live in a different time, man. Like back in the day, you literally had to go work at like a Chick-fil-A, Burger King. I worked at Sonic, you know what I mean? Like
I worked at McDonald's.
Yeah, you had to. That was how you started, the car wash, something like that. But like I met a girl the other day in Miami when I was at this crypto thing. Young lady, I mean, she couldn't have been more than. She didn't even look old enough to drink, right? now maybe she was, but she didn't look old. Like she didn't look 21. She looked very. She got a company doing $50 million a year. She didn't tell me this. I looked it up.
Right.
Doing $50 million a year selling magnetic eyelashes.
Wow.
And she said, I saw a problem and I found a solution to it, and it was very easy, and I got it in Ulta, and I'm in all these other places now. It's like, that's super cool, right?
Really?
But like, think of it, like most people that are under 21, our generation, like I said, we go and figure out a job at Sonic, McDonald's, the car wash or whatever. She's watching YouTube videos going, they make something similar to that there. I'll call them and see it. Like, they just have all this. So being resourceful, I think, for young people is going to be the biggest skill that they need. They need to learn to be resourceful, because the truth is every resource you could need is right in front of you at your fingertips, phone, computer. You need to learn how to search for things, how to process information, how to take that information, process it, and apply it to get the results from that information. And that is what's going to be, when you're resourceful and able to do that. Like when we hire people here, it's like, and even this is the way the military works too. It's like, hey, here's limited resources. Now go be resourceful.
Right. Yeah, you go. This is what you got.
Like,
Make it happen.
I don't have, if I had the time to do your job, I wouldn't have hired you.
Right.
So here's the resources we're going to give you. Be resourceful and figure stuff out.
Right.
You know. And we have somebody like, you know, Mariana, for example, that comes in here. She's not from Texas, and you're like, hey, register these cars, and she's like, done. Google register cars in Dallas, Texas. You know what I'm saying? And that's exactly how it has to go. The next thing you know, it's like, here's all the paperwork you need to fill out. That's a skill set that so many people don't possess, because here's what most people do. It's not just the younger generations, every generation, is they wait for the resources to just show up. The resources will come to me. But man, when you're resourceful, which means you're full of intent to go get those things, that's a skill set.
That's powerful. Now I know, because the age of the information technology, we can access any kind of information. But there's a different dynamic that comes into play when these young people start actually interacting with people like yourself, like the Chris Whiteheads, like the other people that are in this community that have actually achieved some degree of success. That level of experience is not something you can just find, but if you can get in the room with people like that, the impact and the implications of being able to take you to another level is astronomical, man.
Well, you know, personally, I've paid well over $1 million to be in the room.
Right.
And whether that be an investment that I had to make into a company to get into the room, or an investment I had to make into a mastermind, or a seminar, or a private dinner, or whatever it is, the room that I had to get into, I made sure that I could get in there. And I've spent the money when I didn't have the money, you know. And there was a time in 2013, I believe it is, and I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. I borrowed the money to get into the room, but that room is like literally what's got us to where we are today.
Really?
You know,
Really?
Being in that room started a spark that's blazed into what we're doing today. And I say that because that's what I've done for people, is I put together that room so that a young person can meet up with somebody like Chris and meet up with somebody like me and get instruction from someone like you and Thomas, people that really do care. Because here's what I know, man. It's like, it's one thing to become successful. It's another to stay successful. And the hardest part about staying successful, like what I didn't tell the folks listening to this, is in 2005 when I made that $700,000, and by the time 2008 rolled around, man, I was in prison. You know, so I had it, lost it.
Right.
You know, easy come, easy go. So a lot of times y'all are out there praying that you get rich overnight. I'm telling you, that's a curse in itself. That is actually in the Bible is a biblical curse, right? Because you don't know what to do with it. It comes too quick. You don't know how to manage it. Blah blah blah. Like you don't know what to do with it, right? Money will aid you. Money will make you mature. Money will make your decision change, because all of a sudden the decision is your money. You make way different decisions,
right.
You know. And so I lost it and got it back. And I don't believe you're a real one until you can lose it and get it all back. Right? I've done it 4 times, so I know I'm real. But now being able to get in the room with someone like Chris that's lost it and got it back, because that's almost a guarantee the first time.
Right.
Like that, you know, like it's so rare that someone hits a home run their first time, right? They hit a home run and then the game ends up getting rained out. They don't even count the points. You know what I'm saying? Like that's usually what happens. Then you got to figure out how to make sure that when the next time you hit a home run, the sun's out.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And that's really the game that we're playing. And so many people. They don't have an opportunity to get around people that have gone through it. Like, man, when I was 24, 25 years old and I'm making this money and I got still struggles. You know what I mean? Just because I have money doesn't mean that I'm like, oh, yeah, exactly. You know, my struggles are huge. You know what I mean? If I don't close this deal, D.R. Horton's going to sue me and all these other things. I go talk to my friends about this. What they say? Man, you just bought a brand new truck. What do you care for? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you got this house. Oh, you for first world problems or whatever stuff. The excuse for them feeling like inadequate and trying to throw it back on me, right? But I didn't have anybody to talk to. Had I had somebody like you that was in a network back then, because all that stuff didn't exist back then, that I could just reach out to and be like, yo, Robert, man, I'm thinking about doing this, and I'm really stressed out. And if D.R. Horton's going to sue me, how am I going to deal with that? And you go, hey, well, when I was, the last time I dealt with them, here's who you need to call. And having connections over there.
That know the answers.
Exactly, man. So it's like, okay, cool. I was going to jump off the bridge, but you know what? I'm going to get back in the car and drive, right? Like,
that's strong, but that's real, because one of the things that we do when anybody comes into the Apex community, we actually do an onboarding process. Yeah. Because their lives are about to change when they start getting involved in this network. But the thought is, we always drop on them your 21 rules of money, because you've actually gone through and developed strategic plan of action for what do you do to manage this money once it starts coming in. And I think that that's something that should be universal, because you did that from your experience and you're passing it on to somebody else, saying, okay, now before this game starts, you need to know these rules, because you're going to have to apply them or it could be detrimental to you. That's powerful.
The 21 rules of money are great, but let me give you the money mission, right? Like, okay. This is the money mission. This is the number one most important thing that you got to know about money. Money is not meant to be kept. Money is meant to be used and flow through you, not to you. Like, most people, the reason why they never get ahead in life is the money they get, they put it in a savings account, they put it in a checking account, and they don't spend it, okay? And then they think Dave Ramsey method or whatever, and that's fine. He's a great guy, but that stuff doesn't work in today's modern era when inflation and all this other stuff's going on. It just doesn't work. it as effective as what you could do. Mm-hmm. And so the thing with me, I believe that's always, I have always lived this, man, is I don't keep money. I have no use for money. I keep it moving. That's right. Even back in the day when I remember I hit this lick, and I had been in the mortgage business for 1 year. And I hit this lick where I met this guy at a seminar, because I paid to be in the room.
Okay,
right?
Is it the right
I
room?
met this guy at a seminar. It was a Robert Allen seminar, and he refinanced 50 investment properties with me. Okay, so that's 50 loans. They were probably 80 grand a piece. It's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so as I'm going through and doing all of these loans for this guy, like I said, paid to be in the room. Now I met this guy, and I'm getting this experience and everything else. I make all this money, and my friends are like, damn, you just made $150,000. I took every last dollar and put it down on Beazer, Mercedes, D.R. Horton, and Pulte homes all over the DFW Metroplex and earnest money so they could build them, and forgot to keep money for myself to feed myself. I literally I even borrowed money from two of my friends' parents to go in. I'm like, I already put, $100 grand in myself. I just need a little bit from you too. Right. And then it was like, shit, I got to go get these damn quarters to go buy pizza to last me for the next week, story, right? Yeah. And true story, right? I'm like, I go over there with my girlfriend, like, you pay for it. She's like, you pay for it. I'm like, no, man, I'm the one. You pay for it, right? But that's how, I was willing to risk it all. And that was in 2005, 2006. In 2012, I decided to risk it all again. I decided that I was going to go all in and build what we're building right now. I sold my house. I sold my car. Mm-hmm. I moved in with my in-laws. I was, embarrassed. Everybody made fun of me. Social media is fake. We've been telling you that for the last 3 years. Right. We've been trying, 2 years later, it finally took off. Man, I got rich. But I risked it again. Then what I do? Took all that money, gambled on something else, right? But every time I've gambled on myself.
Yep.
I never gambled on you. I never gambled on somebody else. I gambled on, if I'm going to take that money and risk it all, there's only one bet that I know is a sure thing, and that's this one right here. Right. You know what I mean? and I've done this enough times now to where it don't drive my wife crazy. She's like, he knows what he's doing.
He's doing it again.
It's going to seem crazy, but he knows, and it doesn't drive the people around me like you guys when we're going all in on this event and stuff like we're doing. Like, I seen him do it before. He's gonna pull it off. And it really does. So I just want you to know that too. The number one rule of money is to keep it moving. It does no good stacking it to you. Like, keep that stuff moving and growing because it doesn't grow if it's sitting somewhere. Nothing does any good. Like, you just get something, you sit it somewhere. Money's not a collectible. Right. You know what I mean? Money's something that you deploy and you make it multiply.
That reminds me of the biblical story about the guy with the talent.
That's what I was going to say, yes.
He buried his, and he got raked over because he did the wrong thing with it. He should have kept it moving.
But that's such a true story for today's day. It's a timeless story, but the story is really quickly. There was 3 gentlemen, and they got talents. One guy got 10 talents, and a talent was a measure of gold. One guy got 10 talent, one guy got 5 talents, and the other guy got 1 talent. The dude with 10 talents came back, turned it into 100 talents. The king was really happy. The dude that got 5 talents came back, turned it into 10 talents. The king was really happy. The dude that got 1 talent buried it. He was scared he was going to lose it. Okay, so that's poor thinking. That's not abundant thinking.
That's right.
See, he stored it up. He didn't keep it moving. The guy that had 10, and he said, well, you gave them 5 and 10. And he goes, I know. All the more reason for you to do more with 1.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the whole purpose of it. So many people think, oh, they got 1. I don't know what to do with it. They think, oh, I'll go do this when X event takes place. I'll go donate to charity. We were just talking about this in church. I'll go donate to charity when I make X amount of dollars. No. I'm going to donate now on my way to X amount of dollars, right? You know what I'm saying? Right. And I'm going to believe that them dollars are coming. Right. It's funny, my wife and I were sitting there at church, and the pastor says, this is a financial meeting, so it's not like regular church, right? It's all about money. And he says, write down what you'd like to give in your lifetime, you know? And he said, you know, it should be a big number. Why, you know, obviously it should be a big number, you know? And I wrote down, it's like, I like to give $20 million, you know? And my wife was like, said, well, you know what's crazy is we not far, you know? Like, what we done, we not that far from giving a lot of, I mean, we've already given well into millions to charity and stuff. And again, even when it comes to giving to charities, like, I don't need to keep that money. You know what I mean? I'm going to get more. That's a belief that, hey, I'm going to bet on myself because I'm going to go get more. I'm going to bet on God and the church because I'm going to get more. I'm going to bet on these investments, and if they don't work, I'm going to go get more, right?
Y'all need to write that down. Rewind this. Make sure you take a note, because that's a powerful principle. Removing that scarcity mentality is the first step toward opening up and actually causing the avalanche of abundance, because it's really your mind that's creating a lot of these realities.
The limitations, you know, and I tell everybody it's easy just to build a ramp over a roadblock. So many people, they run into a roadblock and they try to move it. They say, oh, you can't go through it. You can't pick it up. You can't move it. It's just impossible. It's just a roadblock. Man, you go get a piece of wood and ride right over that thing, man.
That's it.
You know, so real easy. No friction, you know.
Who were some of your most influential mentors or role models in terms of you coming up that really had an impact or influence on your life?
Well, my first mentor was a guy named Brian Flanagan, and he worked for Zig Ziglar, right? So by the time I hired the Ziglar Corporation to coach me in sales, I was in the mortgage business then. Zig was old. He was on his last tour. I signed up with Zig on his last tour. I got to meet him and all that before he passed away. He actually lived on my street.
Really?
It's pretty crazy. Not where I live now, but at the time, right, where my in-law street. I leave that out sometimes. But, my ex-in-laws at this point. But so, you know, Zig and Brian Flanagan, who Brian's still around today. He's probably retired, but I see him on Facebook every now and then. He was my first ever mentor. And then Pastor Keith Craft, you know, was definitely taught me the sales and stuff better than anybody, just by watching how he's moved for the last 20 years that we've been together. There's a gentleman named Kevin Nations out of Las Vegas, and Kevin taught me how to put on a small event for 5 people. That's his specialty, a small event for 5 people. And I tried, I just could never fucking do it for 5 people, you know. It's always bigger, but he taught me some things about events that I didn't know was possible. And now we throw events for thousands of people, you know. There's a guy named Marshall Silver who one time I watched him talk to a room and make a whole bunch of money through what he did, and I hired him to teach me how to be a better presenter, and it was well worth the money. And you know, there's a gentleman named Frank Kern who taught me how to write, and the original guy to teach me how to make funnels. So there's been a lot of people, you know. Even now, I pay a billionaire $10,000 a month to talk to me once a month, and people think, you know, damn, Stewman, are you lonely? No, I got more friends than I know what to do with. You know what I mean? And more people that would pay me $10,000 to talk to them a month. I just don't have the time to do it. And as a matter of fact, I have a call with the guy. It's my next appointment today. But that's still to this day, right? But the conversation I may have had with Frank Kern a decade ago, or Kevin Nations a decade ago, or Brian Flanagan almost 2 decades ago, about, sales, marketing, events is different. The guy that I'm talking to today is about private equity and patenting and trademarking and building up and exiting a massive company. It's a whole different conversation. But I had to learn sales. Then I had to learn marketing so that I could make sales. Then I had to learn leadership so that I could be a COO and a CEO and a visionary and all that. Then I had to learn business so that I could teach it to somebody else so that I could step away from it.
Right.
And now I'm learning that exit strategy.
That's true. So tell me this: where do you see this young entrepreneurial project or process or movement? Well, back to community. We're gonna keep it. We're gonna keep it light. Yeah. Where do you see it going and growing to? What is your vision for it?
I want this to last forever. I want this to be something that's like, not to take anything away from it, but similar to like ROTC. Where when people graduate from high school or people are in their junior and senior years of high school, they're going through the Apex program because they know when they get out, they're going to build their machine and be an entrepreneur, and they're proud of it. You know what I'm saying? They'd be wearing our shirts in their school, like, like we wore Ed Hardy or whatever it was.
Yeah. Represent.
Exactly, and staying in for life.
Right.
Like somebody, like we're always going to be as a community progressing and growing and getting better. So it's an opportunity for someone to come in at 16, 15 years old and come in even on a scholarship to this thing from 15, 16 years old and learn and build a machine and build an e-com business, and then have guys that have already been in the program for 5 and 10 years ahead of them that they can now borrow money from and now get, the help like my mentor's doing for me on the PE. There's going to be guys that are, that are in that direction. I'm going to know how to help you with that stuff. So it's like,
that's powerful.
By the time I have a friend named Josh Snow. His name's Josh Elazici, but he goes by Josh Snow online. And Josh is a great dude. He's one of my close best friends. And I've known the guy forever. He's very young. I think he just turned 30.
Really?
And his company does hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And teeth whitening. You can tell clearly I don't use this product. But I don't know why. I bought it. I'm a fucking supporter. I just haven't used it. I'm just saying. Don't get mad at me if you see this, Josh. I'm not representing your brand over here, all right? But with Josh, he does hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And people see this 30-year-old guy with a bunch of Ferraris and Lamborghinis and houses, and he travels all over the world because the business runs itself and stuff. But if you were to ask Josh, he would tell you that I built this company when I was 16 years old. So technically, he's got 14 years in the game.
Really?
Okay, which is longer than even I have as a business owner, entrepreneur at this point, right? And he's a decade and a half younger than I am. He's got, because I worked for somebody all the way up till 2011. And so he's got more time in as an entrepreneur than I have. And he made the mistakes younger, but he had people that were older than him. He's been in these groups and had people mentoring him all along. When he was making, 10 grand a month, dude, he said he was spending his money not on cars and everything else, on mentors and memberships, because he knew that he was going somewhere and he needed help with it. A lot of these folks, man, they make their first dollar. And like man, when I made my first dollar in the mortgage industry, it was like $9,800 in a paycheck. Man, I was rich. Bro, like Bill Gates could he could get out of here. I got money. He don't even know.
Real money.
Yeah, I got real money. Bill Gates don't even know who he's messing with. You know what I'm saying? And most people, I watched that happen to a lot of people because I wrote those checks to people over the years. Me, the first thing that I did was pay my bills. The second thing that I did was invest in something. I bought seminar tickets. I bought books. I bought, I'm going to go get more, but I'm going to go invest in something. So many people, I watched them get that check, go buy a brand new car. Get that check and go get Versace uniform.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Go in the banking world, let's go get a $5,000 suit, or whatever the case may be. It's like, not me, man. I still went and shopped at Kohl's and while those guys were driving Jags and Mercedes and everything else, I drove a F-150 and a used one and single cab, single cab Sunday every day of the week, and paid $200 a month for it, maybe even a little less than that. And man, I was making $700,000 a year driving that thing.
Wow. So it's my last question. Because this is the Light the Future series. And, I truly believe that there is no separation, that we are all one, in terms of consciousness. But the thought is that if you had an opportunity to speak to your younger self based on the wisdom experience you've gleaned over the years, what would you say to help your younger self avert some of the pitfalls, roadblocks, or headaches, or whatever? Because when you speak to this young generation, we're actually making that happen. That's what's taking place. We're speaking to ourselves, trying to provide some guidance to get them to a place of safety and security. What would you tell them?
Well, if I were to tell my younger self anything, my story's different than most, but everything that you go through in life is happening for you. At the time, it may seem like a curse, but it always ends up being a blessing. Every time that I could look back in my life and I thought, why, God, would you do this to me? Why, God, would you let her break my heart? Why, God, would you let this person take money from me? My God, why, God, would you let this person tell lies about me? Why, God, would you put me in prison? Why, God, would you do these things? And every time I remember having those like, why, God moments, I look back 3, 4, 5, because they say time heals everything, but time really reveals everything. And I would look back 4 or 5 years in the future, and I would look back and I would think, man, if that person hadn't left my life, this event right now that's happening right here in this moment would have never taken place. If that person hadn't hurt me, done me wrong, this event taken place, whatever that thing was, then this thing happening right now. When I remember, and even as soon as like 2019, 2018, we had a bunch of people that at the time it was heartbreaking, the things that they were doing, and I thought, man, why, God, why, what I've done nothing but pour my heart into these people, but what we're doing today couldn't exist with those people. So every time that I thought that I was coming to the end and I thought that the world was against me, it was actually happening for my benefit. It's just hard to see it when you're living in the moment, and that means that everything that's happening to you right now, every struggle, every sacrifice, everything that you're going through is happening for one reason and one reason only: to make you stronger. In the moment that you realize that struggles make you stronger and you start to embrace those struggles and seek the strength that comes from them, you'll be an invincible, free individual that's unstoppable.
That's powerful, man. Ryan Stewman, I want you to know how grateful I am for you, because I remember, I think it was back in 2017 when I first invested to get you to coach me, to teach me about, the social media digital marketing, and your organization and enterprise has flourished and blossomed and is continuing to grow and expand. So once again, this is the Life the Future series. You need to make sure you rewind this, take your notes, go back and look at it over and over again, but apply the principles to live by. Thank you, sir.